The night was frozen in silence, the kind that makes even the wind sound lonely. Snow fell endlessly, covering everything in white, like the world had been erased. Inside a small wooden cabin at the edge of town, Athan Cole, a former Marine and now a single father, sat by a dying fireplace. His little daughter Leia slept on the couch, her tiny hands clutching a worn-out teddy bear. The room was dim, the air cold, and the last few pieces of firewood were already turning to ash. Ethan stared at the flames, his eyes heavy, not with sleep, but with memories of better days. He once built motorcycles, ran a small workshop, and wore his pride like armor. But after losing his business, his wife, and everything that gave life meaning, all that remained was this old cabin and the silence that came with it. Outside, the blizzard grew wild. Wind howled through the cracks, rattling the windows. The roof groaned as snow piled heavier with every passing minute. Ethan checked his daughter again, tucked her blanket tighter, and looked out the window just to see if the world still existed beyond the storm. That's when he saw them, headlights cutting through the wall of snow, one, then two, then more, until the mountain road below his cabin glowed like a string of stars. The deep rumble that followed wasn't thunder. It was the sound of motorcycles, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and helping others in their darkest nights. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories of hope alive. Ethan stepped outside, his boots sinking into snow up to his ankles. He pulled his jacket tighter as the sound grew louder. Out of the blizzard emerged a formation of 20 bikes, their headlights shimmering through the white storm like fire and frost. Leading them was a woman, tall, confident, with eyes that spoke of strength and stories untold. Sierra Rhodes, CEO of one of the biggest motorcycle gear companies in the country and leader of the all-women biker crew known as the Valkies. They were warriors of the road, veterans, survivors, and dreamers who rode for change. The bike stopped in front of Ethan's cabin. The riders' coats were dusted white with snow. Sierra removed her helmet and took a deep breath, her voice soft yet steady. "We need shelter. Please." Ethan looked at the 20 women shivering in the storm. His own fireplace was dying, food was short, and the roof leaked, but something inside him refused to turn them away. He opened the door wide. "Come in," he said quietly. Within minutes, the small cabin turned into a warm refuge. The Valkyries hung their wet jackets near the fire, their laughter and chatter filling the lonely space. The smell of hot coffee and soup from their travel flasks mixed with the scent of burning wood. Leia woke up and stared in awe at the women, strong, kind, and smiling at her like she was their little sister. One of them handed her a cup of cocoa, and for the first time in months, she giggled. Sierra noticed Ethan's hesitation as he stood in the corner, quietly observing. She could see the discipline in his posture. The way he moved told her everything. "You served, didn't you?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded. "Marine Corps," he replied. Sierra smiled faintly. "Then you know what it means to protect others, even when you've got nothing left." That night, as the storm outside roared, inside there was warmth, not just from the fire, but from shared humanity. The women helped patch up parts of the cabin with spare tarps from their gear. They told stories of the roads they'd conquered, of women they'd helped, of battles they'd fought to reclaim their lives. Ethan, who had forgotten what companionship felt like, listened silently, his eyes occasionally softening when they laughed. By morning, the snowstorm began to settle. The world outside glistened, white, still, and breathtaking. The Valkyries prepared to leave, cleaning up before they went, but Sierra lingered. She walked outside where Ethan stood, looking at the snow-covered remnants of his old workshop beside the cabin, the place where he once repaired and built bikes before bankruptcy took it all. "You built these machines?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Used to before everything fell apart." Sierra smiled knowingly. "Then maybe it's time to rebuild." A week later, Ethan heard the familiar thunder again, the sound of 20 engines rolling down his driveway. Sierra had returned, but not just to visit. Behind the bikes were 3 large trucks, all bearing the Valkyrie Motor Company logo. Ethan stepped out, confused. Sierra handed him an envelope. Inside were partnership papers and a letter. "You gave us shelter when you had almost nothing," she said. "Now it's our turn to give you one." The trucks unloaded materials, tools, and equipment. With the help of the Valkies and local volunteers, Ethan's old workshop was reborn. The sign above the door read Ella's Garage. It became more than a repair shop. It became a sanctuary for people like Ethan. Veterans, widows, and single parents came there to learn, to work, and to rebuild their lives. Sierra partnered officially with Ethan, making him head of a new restoration project under her company, focused on giving jobs to struggling veterans. Within months, the cabin that once echoed with silence now buzzed with life, laughter, engines, and music. Snow still fell every winter, but now it brought memories of hope, not despair. Years later, at a large charity event for the Valkyrie Foundation, Ethan stood beside Sierra on stage. His daughter Laya, now a teenager, watched proudly from the crowd. He spoke into the microphone, his voice trembling with gratitude. That night, I thought the world had forgotten me, but it hadn't. It just sent angels riding through the snow. The audience stood and clapped. Sierra smiled humbly, her eyes glistening. She knew this wasn't just a story of survival. It was a story of humanity at its purest form. Before the screen fades, the narrator's voice returns, soft but firm. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Stories. Your support keeps stories of kindness alive. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there will be inspired to open their door for a stranger someday. And before we go, tell us in the comments below, do you believe one act of kindness can rewrite someone's destiny? Because sometimes all it takes is one knock, one storm, and one yes to change everything.